Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar. This is a multi-stakeholder webinar series or talking about RealiseD. So I'm here to welcome you to this webinar today. My name is Kathy Williams and I'm working at AstraZeneca, and AstraZeneca are the project lead company for RealiseD. So with that, let's move to the first slide. So just while people are joining, there's a lot of people in the lobby and we've had a really good response to this webinar today. So thank you all very much for joining. I hope you enjoy it. But just to mention that this session will be recorded so that we can distribute it and also refer back to it. And for those people who can't join live today, it will be a great tool. So by joining this meeting, you consent to the recording and the uses that I've just described. As you sit on this call as attendees today, your microphone will automatically be muted. However, this is a Teams call, so if at any point in the question and answer session at the end you do want to post your question live, you can simply ask us to unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. So you're not completely disabled there. This says use the chat function, but actually the chat function is disabled, I believe. So if you have questions and questions during the presentations and the panel discussion, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section, which you'll find on the top scroll bar of the Teams screen. So do post those. We may be able to answer some of them during the sessions, or we can save them for the Q&A session at the end. Okay, so next slide, please. So while you're all joining, perhaps you could just reach for your mobile phones and scan on this QR code. So this is because one of our work packages is running a survey, and this is to help us improve, overall clinical trial enrollment. So we're launching this survey that seeks to identify and understand the factors that influence enrolment in clinical trials in rare diseases. So if you can take a moment now and just scan on that QR code, the survey is open through January. And if you can take a minute to do that, that would be fantastic, because we really need all the feedback from this fantastic community that we can get to help us with this work. So thank you very much, and I hope you can scan that now. I've probably given you a minute to do that, so that's great. Next slide, please. And the next one, I'll just give a brief introduction, first of all, to this multi-stakeholder webinar series. So there are 4 webinars in the series. Each and every one of them will include a distinguished panel of experts from the project, from colleagues, including researchers, patient advocates, policymakers, and industry professionals. And we've been seeking to represent as many diverse voices across that rare disease community as we can. So as you probably know, because you're on this call, these webinars are open to everyone through registration. But please tell all your friends, because we do have 3 more webinars after today. So today we're looking at realising clinical trials in ultra-rare diseases. This kind of kicks off the webinar series. Webinar 2 looks at the evidence assessment framework. So the question is, the need for a mindset shift amongst developers, regulators and HTAs. And that's on the 20th of January, so next week. Webinar 3 looks at single-arm RCT or something in between. So, randomized clinical trial or single-arm, how to enrich clinical trial design and analysis in this rare disease area. That's on the 3rd of February. And then finally, enhancing patient centricity in rare disease clinical trials, leveraging hierarchical endpoints and net treatment benefit. That's on the 10th of February. And after all these webinars are completed, we'd really love to be able to get some sort of output in a publication from this. So we're using all of the materials, whether that be your Q&As or comments from the panels, etc. So this is a very rich source of information for the project. And the next slide introduces webinar 1, which is today. So introduction, that's myself. I've already introduced myself, and then shortly I'll be introducing you to Dieter Hilgers, who's our RealiseD coordinator, SFU. So Dieter will give a presentation, and then we'll move into a panel discussion, and we have 3 distinguished colleagues here. Solange Corriol, who is an independent consultant in regulatory affairs and policy, and Solange was instrumental in setting up this project a year ago. So welcome, Solange. Donato is the CEO of CVBF and will give a few slides from that perspective. And then Christina is a scientific policy officer at the European Commission. So we'll hear from our distinguished panelists, and then we will go into a question and answer session, which will include all of you as our audience, and then we'll close with some remarks at the end. So that's our program for the next sessions, and I'd like with that to hand over to Dieter for the presentation. The floor is yours, Dieter.
Thank you very much. First slide. Yeah, thank you very much, Kathy, for this kind introduction, and Daniel for moving the slides. So my name is Ralf-Dieter Hilgers. I'm the biostatistician and coordinator of the RealiseD project. The title for today is Realizing Clinical Trials in Ultra-Rare and Rare Diseases. The coordinating institution is Sigmund Freud Private University, and I'm currently also affiliated to the RWTH Aachen University. So the content of my presentation reflects my personal view. It is neither IHI nor European Union, FPR, or associated partner are responsible for any use that may be made for the information contained herein. So next slide, please. So I give you a small. My presentation is organized in 4 parts. I will start with a general introduction and the framework of what we are doing in RealiseD. Then I will go to the mission and the vision of us before we go over to the objectives and first approaches what we are doing. I will summarize, and at the end, during the summary, I also will try to stimulate the discussion a bit with some provocating statements. So let's go ahead to the next slide. So when we were faced with the call text in 2023, so more or less myself, which is an IHI call, topic 4, estimating novel approaches to improve clinical trials in rare and ultra-rare diseases. I was fascinated by the call text because it summarizes to a certain extent what I have been doing, or what a group of people around me, because I'm not alone, around me have been done for the past 10 years. Our aims and our efforts we did for improving clinical trials in small population groups. So next slide, please. In the call text, it was mentioned 2 very important things, which you read also in the title: the definition of ultra-rare disease on the one hand side, and so-called white spot areas. So concerning the definition of ultra-rare diseases, you have to take into account that there is no unique definition of ultra-rare diseases in Europe. We have one in the US, which is about 1 patient or less than 1 patient per 50,000 persons, but that is not accepted right now in the EU. White spot areas are conditions for which there is no approved treatment option available right now. So this kind of, let's say, framework we are dealing with. So in this environment, we are looking for improvement of any sort of clinical trials. The point of the ultra-rare diseases was also mentioned at the kickoff meeting and at our scientific advisory board kickoff meeting by several persons who said, well, what's ultra-rare disease? You have to define that, because otherwise nobody can understand what you are doing. So I think that will take our time, and in the next year to formalize this a little bit better. And maybe we don't say any more ultra rare diseases. We are coming from challenges, but we will do that in the next year. So what I would like to mention is, next slide, please, Daniel, is what we did in the IRDIC task force Pluto. So Pluto tries to understand what are the knowledge levels in the rare disease context. And from various perspectives, we merge data sets, basically in the group of Diego Adagio, it was done. And we try to understand what level of information is available concerning literature, clinical studies available, often designations and marketing authorizations. These are the 4 levels we distinguished. And you see on the middle block of this slide, that we distinguished, let's say, prevalence classes, 1 to 5 per 10,000, which is the usual rare disease definition. And then we go down to 9 per 100,000, 9 per 1 million, and 9 per 10 million. 0 is lost there. So anyway, I mean, what you can see is that if you think about ultra rare disease in the US context, you see that it covers almost all 3 rows on all 3 lower rows in that transparencies. And you see that it's a very heterogeneous scenario here, because you have in the category 1 to 9 per 100,000, you have a lot of marketing authorizations. You have some orphan designations. So maybe you think from the drug perspective, there is no real problem there. And in particular, in the category 1 to 9 per 1 million, that seems to be no real problem there. Don't forget, it's the number of diseases fall in that category is very different. The highest number of diseases fall in the lowest category, which is less than 1 per 1 million. And you see there the knowledge gap is really great, because we only have, let's say, most of the 60% of the diseases only have literature papers, and a small fraction have a clinical study, but we don't have any orphan designation and marketing authorization. So one might think, okay, less than 1 per 1 million explains all, but I don't think so. I think we should more think about the challenges we are faced with. So please go to the next slide. So common perception of rare disease or ultra rare disease clinical trials are the challenges which I mentioned in this slide. Clinical trials are often in this category of diseases could not be done by lack of tailored statistical methodology, by patient population characteristics, which are small or limited, are heterogeneous, or geographically widespread. Third, limited to no available data, so less knowledge. So that means that you don't have good natural history data and you don't have good endpoints. Regulatory pathway is not clear, is another one, and recruitment challenging, and expert sites are less networked. So these are common perceptions, but I don't think we have numbers here, how many of the diseases have suffer from these challenges. I like the first one very much because it goes in the direction that we need tailored approaches for conducting statistical clinical trials with sound statistical methodology. Yeah, some of these cases must be specified a little bit better. The last one is also in RealiseD seen as an operational aspect because here we have recruitment challenges and expert sites, so that we have to figure out what is under this umbrella. So needless to say that geographically widespread is very much aligned with recruitment challenges. So let's go ahead to my next slide, which tells you the vision about RealiseD. So as already mentioned by Kathy, Kathy and me are coordinator and project leads representing the SFU and the AstraZeneca, which builds up the family of RealiseD. So we would like to enable drug development for ultra-rare diseases, and also in these cases where rare diseases, where we have problems with rare diseases, they should be handled as well. And we would like to do this by realizing clinical trials in ultra-rare diseases. So methodological and operational framework, we found out require paradigm shifts driven by innovative clinical trial designs and analysis methodology. Enhanced preparedness and mutual collaboration of the network of investigational sites. So preparedness and collaboration network of the investigational sites is also a very important thing. And we found out that this can only be done in a multi-stakeholder environment, which was also mentioned by Kathy, where patient regulators, health technology assessors, academia, and pharmaceutical industry work together. So my next slide will tell you our mission. RealiseD, and now you find the resolution of the abbreviation. RealiseD will implement a collaborative and comprehensive methodological and operational approach to clinical trials in ultra-rare diseases. The key elements of this project are: we focus on ultra-rare diseases, we establish tools for drug development, we develop design and analysis tools for ultra-rare clinical trials, so design tools, analysis tools, statistics in this heart. Then we have a strong co-creation of the work and the results within a multi-stakeholder environment. As I told you just before, we are not working in silos. We are not working in statistics only and not talking to anybody else. We are in each work package and in each work stream, we are working closely together with the in this multi-stakeholder environment with the European Medicines Agency, with the HTA provider from Germany, IQWiC, academia. You can divide that in clinical and in methodological academia researchers, with our private partners from the industry and with the patients. And what we will deliver at the end are the playbooks. Okay, so let's go ahead to my next slide. I show you a little bit more about how big our RealiseD family is. So if you consider the circle, you see in the middle, we're starting from use cases. We're starting from real clinical cases. We try to understand what their problems is. We build up designs and we build up analysis tools to improve clinical trials for the use cases and go beyond that. We would like to have methods which are not focused only on the use cases, which have a high potential to be able to transfer to other diseases as well. We are accompanied by regulatory and HTA people. Then we go to the next circle, and we the next circle in that picture. Thank you. Sorry, Daniel, I confused you. We have patient recruitment strategies and certified styles. The organization, the structure to conduct clinical trials, we would like to improve as well. And then we go out in the next level. We include the patient perspective, dissemination, and our playbook. And you see a lot of logos here. These logos are based on our consortium, which is 29 public partners, 11 private partners, and 13 associated private partners. A public-private partnership. And this is our co-creation. All are involved in all these aspects, some more, some less, in particular aspects. So let me go to the objectives. The objectives, our next slide, please. The objectives, I have 2 pages with objectives, because we have as much objectives as we have work packages or work streams in our project. So as you heard frequently, we are looking for referral strategies to enable patients and to minimize the risk of enrollment failure for clinical trials. Then we would like to address the main hurdles of clinical trial conception in ultra-rare disease and to articulate the need for innovative clinical trial methodology based on 4 use cases. So the number 4 is not comes not from our minds. It is based on the call text. There was written in no more than 4 use cases. So then we have the objective to provide a framework of center certification. We have the objective to evaluate and optimize various aspects of clinical trial designs in ultra-rare diseases, allowing comparative assessment to enable quantitative comparison of various designs by developing models and assessment functions. So this is the design tool. And then we have the analysis tool. And in the analysis tool, we would like to combine as much as information we have. You know that problem from single-arm trial, because in single-arm trial, you borrow information from external data to, let's say, give an impression, let me say it in that way, give an impression about the efficacy of a drug. So that means in this regard, we would like to develop methodology to maximally extract information from available patients on multiple and longitudinal outcomes, to enrich this knowledge base with relevant additional sources, including natural history studies, related indications, real-world data, and multiple sources, and to develop user-friendly, stable, and precise inference methods of sparse data. And within that category, we are also considering different, let's say, outcome measures of clinical trials. So in my next slide, the 4 other objectives. We have the objective to build a dialogue with the regulator, HD8 authority, and acceptance of evidence to generate an innovative design and data source accommodating the role of qualification pathway and need for new pathways. And what I learned in one of the meetings which I participated in the last time, it is not common that regulators, for example, the European Medicines Agency or health technology assessors, were working within the project. They are, in most cases, in the advisory board. That's good. But working with them together in close collaboration, that is our realized approach, because the European Medicines Agency is participating in all of the work, in most of the work packages. In particular, we had a work package 4 meeting last Monday, and we had Frank Petterby from the EMA on board. We have Frank Petterby also on board this morning at the executive committee. So they contribute really to what we are doing. And that is very important because we would like to make sure that they accept the approaches. Objective 7, to ensure they maximize the alignment of realized work output outcomes with the overall RD ecosystem. Needless to say, there's one structure, the ADERA project, which is in parallel, where we are well connected in person and, of course, in work streams, which we are doing in parallel. To ensure patient centricity and enable co-creation through our workshop will be guaranteed by EURORDIS with our multi-stakeholder meetings. And finally, we would like to deliver the playbooks. And I frequently remember that Tony Andrew from EATRIS, who is leading that, he's playing with papers and say, okay, that's my playbook at the end. We will not be sure that it will be a paper or something like that, but we are working on the structure, we are working on the target groups and all of these. And I'm sure that this will be important for sustainability of RealiseD results and make it available in the future for rare disease clinical trials. And when I mentioned Donato, I hope also for you, because pediatric clinical trials are most often fall in the category of rare or ultra-rare diseases. You may profit from that as well with APTRI. Okay, next slide. So my heart is always in Connect. Also, I'm biostatistician. I have frequent contacts in the past with the European reference networks. And this strong alliance I would like to have in RealiseD. So I was allowed 4 use cases. And you see the 4 use cases over there. So we have asked the European reference network for EpiCare. We have asked EuroBloodNet, ARN Bond, and ARNI. So all of these ARNs provide use case. But in brackets, you see the number. In EpiCare, we are investigated 5 different diseases. We call that one use case. In EuroBloodNet, 2, as well as in ARN Bond and ARNI. In total, we have 12 use cases. But that's not enough. We need the knowledge of the clinical expertise at all. And so we combine it with the ARN ArcNet. Franz Schäfer and his group provided systems and methodologies for the referral system, and Maurizio Scarpa from the ARN MedUp ARN is looking for the certification sites, and their clinical expertise go into our common knowledge. So let me briefly go to the next slide. Yeah, here you see the different diseases. So for EpiCare, Dravet syndrome, Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, SPATA5, TG1L, and ISWAS. And you can see all the others as well. I don't read it. So what we have been done in the past is we asked the clinicians to provide a fact sheet where we as biostatisticians have the feeling, well, explain me that so that I can have a basic knowledge about the outcomes, the natural history, and probably there are trials or what trial designs are used, and are there devices used or not used. So this is a common thing we did in the past with the clinical use cases. And from that, we started systematic reviews, scoping reviews, to learn more about the trial designs and what has been done in the past. So our work is organized, next slide please, in 11 work packages, and here you see an overview. On the far left, you see work package 1, 2, and 3. These are the clinical cases. On the one hand side, the development of efficient patient enrollment system. Second, the clinical use cases. This is one of our largest work packages because it combines all the use cases. Then work package 3, the certified clinical sites. Then we have work package 4 and 5, the methodological work packages on design and innovative analysis strategies. Then we have the regulatory work package 6, and HTA perspective. They are doing a lot of work together, which will influence our work. We have overlapped. So our work streams are not separated. They have a great overlap, which is depicted by the arrows. Then we have the work package 8, patient engagement and multi-stakeholder meetings. And finally, we would like to provide input to the innovation readiness and the playbooks. So all of that is embedded in work package 6 in the alignment with the ecosystem. So we are not working in RealiseD for our own. We need to have this contact to all the groups which provide some knowledge in the rare disease context. So we need that as well. Needless to say, we have a need for coordination and management. And one of the, I would like to mention the group of Roger and TMIT. TMIT is our research organization, which helps us a lot in implementing this huge group of, this huge family of researchers together, bring us together, coordinating that. So without them, it couldn't be managed. And TMIT is also involved in the external communication and dissemination. On the other hand, you wouldn't be informed about the webinar series. So my last two transparencies, our playbook. Here you see who is contributing to that. And I just would like to mention something where I started at the beginning, my history. So my history, more than 10 years ago, I started as coordinator of the IDEAL project. IDEAL and Asterix and Inspire were 3 projects funded by the European Commission to investigate clinical trial methodology for small population clinical trials. And when we go to the EMA after the meeting, they told us, well, it's nice results and very impressive and a huge record of publications. In IDEAL, we have around more than 100 papers and webinars which you can listen, but the application is not available. And so we cannot understand this. So, and what is also missing, patient background, industry background, and something like that. So now you can understand that I'm so proud that we have a big family of all the multi-stakeholders here on board, and so that we are working together to improve and to make clinical trials in ultra-rare diseases possible. So we have some first results, which I would like to mention in my next transparency. So we have some papers. So the second one, optimizing clinical trial methodology for complex pre-regional pain syndrome, which where I was a co-author, is dealing with this kind of disease, which brings us some ideas about what are the needs for clinical trials in this area and what can be transferred to this area as well. Other papers, like the one of testing similarity in dose response in multiple regional clinical trials, randomization in clinical trials with small sample sizes using group sequential designs, and assessing allocation bias in stratified clinical trials with multi-component endpoints, deal with specific aspects of clinical trials and are already published. And then we have some source which is also very important for us. It's the simulation aspect, trial simulation, to understand a little bit before you go into the trial what could come out. And this is one paper which we have in pharmacometrics-informed clinical trial simulation framework to optimize study design for disease-modifying treatments in rare neurological diseases. So we have open-minded, and to see also that we have young people sitting on a table together at the International Society of Clinical Biostatistics, our young fellows, high level of interaction because there were some with regulatory background and some with industry background on the table, and all are smiling because we are looking in the future, and we are happy to make progress in RealiseD. We have also Christoph and Sarah presenting a poster at the 10th Biostatistics Pharmaceutical Conference. We have been present with Hilgers together at the EFGPC Pediatric Conference. The invitation was done by Solange and Donato. We have been at the Orphan Drug Conference. And finally, we were also present at the high-level meeting on rare diseases, where the importance of improving clinical trials in rare diseases was discussed and will be one of the major topics to be realized in the future in European funding. So let me briefly summarize in my last transparency. RealiseD will establish innovative trial methodology in a multi-stakeholder environment of regulators, HTA, clinicians, methodologists, patients, and pharmaceutical industry. RealiseD established in his work a direct co-creation with European Medicines Agency and the IQWiC. RealiseD has started last January and will run for the next 4 years, so end in the beginning of end of 2029. And by this, I end with my last slide, my really last slide. Please, Daniel. So your votes. And I think that is very good for stimulating a discussion and also a Q&A session. So what we found out when we looked to the records in the last 2 days, we found out that we have 212 responses. Now it will be more. And almost 50% of you are involved in planning. So you must be interested in all of these aspects. Second, the challengings which you mentioned is more than 50% have difficulties in recruitment of very small populations. Maybe we can help you in that way if we are at the end. Most of you also stated that regulatory and HTA uncertainty around non-traditional designs are challenges. Yeah, I completely understand. And we are so happy that we have HTA and regulators on board. Around 50% of you said, okay, my major challenge is lack of established endpoints and natural history data. Yeah, okay, identifying sources, using the sources in an appropriate way is a very tricky thing. Let's think about that. And the high level of variability and heterogeneity of patient characteristics is another challenge. So what I like very much is that more than 50% of you stated that in ultra-rare diseases, the starting point design is no single best design. Depends on the context. That's my feeling, that we need tailored design for maybe every disease, but maybe we have groups of diseases. Maybe we can solve that for groups of diseases. And a common perception is also that single-arm trial with external control, historical data is a starting design. Yeah, I can agree with that. So with that, I would like to end my presentation here. I hope we have a nice discussion and would like to hand over to Kathy.
Thank you very much, Dieter, for that excellent introduction to RealiseD project and the mission and the vision and the work ongoing. That was a really great start. So we have 3 distinguished panel members today, Solange, Donato and Christina, who are going to share their reflections with you. And just a reminder, if you have questions during these panel discussions, please post them in the Q&A and then we will address them at the end. So just keep your thinking going during this next section. So I'd like to welcome first Solange to the floor. Solange, please feel free to introduce yourself more than I did at the beginning of this call and go ahead with your slides. Solange, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you to have invited me to join this webinar. I have to say I am thrilled and proud to be involved in this public-private partnership, which was drafted and proposed to IHI, the Innovative Health Initiative, in 2022 on behalf of FPR, the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Association, and as part of the Rare Disease Moonshot Initiative. In the end, this has led to the 5-year RealiseD project, which started, as Dieter said, a year ago. With regard to the moonshot, the Rare Disease Moonshot Initiative, in fact, in June 2022, FPR and RealiseD called for a moonshot for basic and translational research for adult and pediatric rare diseases. RealiseD is a well-known and successful European patient organization, and the Rare Disease Moonshot Initiative, which is a booster to accelerate research for rare and pediatric diseases, was officially launched in December 2022 and is involving great partners, as you can see on the slide, at the bottom of the moonshot figure. And of course, if you want to know more about this moonshot, this Rare Disease Moonshot Initiative, don't hesitate to use and scan the QR code, which is on this slide. Next slide, please. RealiseD will benefit of multi-stakeholder collaboration, knowing what Dieter said regarding the RealiseD consortium, which is involving public and private partners, in line with what is included, in this figure at the bottom and on the right side of the slide, showing, all the stakeholders that are of interest and that are usually involved, as you can see, and it was mentioned also by Dieter: patient representative, regulators, HTA body representatives, people from academia, so on and so forth. So which is quite important. And in line with what has been done so far, thanks to IMI, IHI, or Horizon Europe, knowing that public and private partners are now fully used to work together in the pre-competitive space to address complex areas relevant to public health needs. These PPPs, public-private partnerships, are the opportunity to generate high-quality science, and despite organized in Europe, they are known to have a global impact, which is, of course, quite important. Next slide, please. With RealiseD, multi-stakeholder collaboration will be quite important and valuable, since this is the opportunity to build on the outputs of previous or ongoing projects, as mentioned briefly by Dieter when he mentioned IDEAL. And of course, this will be also the opportunity to collaborate also with existing organizations, having a focus on rare, ultra-rare diseases, of course, such as ERDIRA, ERICA, Remedy for All, and ERDIRC. So it's, of course, quite important to connect, with this organization, knowing that some representatives, are already involved in the consortium, which is quite, important and useful. Of note, it is important to mention the RealiseD Work Package 7, as mentioned by Dieter. This Work Package 7 is co-led with the ERDIRA leader, the fantastic Daria Julkowska. And the objective of Work Package 7 is to align the ecosystem. And this is indeed the opportunity to collaborate, among others, with some Horizon Europe project, knowing that 11 rare disease projects have been established by the European Commission, such as, for example, DREAMS, INVENTS, ERAMET, or Restore Vision. Quite important, of course. Next slide, please. So to meet our objectives, as mentioned by Dieter, and deliver all our identified deliverables, such as the playbook, as Dieter detailed those playbooks, quite nicely, it will be important to consider and use for all involved, for the benefit of all involved in drug development, including the patient, what is existing and happening in Europe, in the US, and also at the global level, which is quite important. And as you can see on the slide, some, of course, of these important, element are included, on the slide. Quite important. And of course, in addition to this, multi-stakeholder collaboration, as we know, is more than ever useful and valuable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Solange, for your reflections on the important work of RealiseD, and the background that you've shared there as well was very helpful. Thank you so much. So now we can move to Donato. The floor is yours. Please feel free to introduce yourself and go ahead with your slides.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Dieter, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to join RealiseD, to start with hopefully a long-term involvement in it. So I'll try to briefly set the scene on where we are today in ultra-rare disease clinical development, where the main gaps remain, and what is needed to help move the field forward. But first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm an economist with a strong focus on the development, governance, and sustainability of pediatric research infrastructures at European level. I serve as a board member of the TEDI, European Network of Excellence for Pediatric Clinical Research, and as coordinator of the European Transnational Pediatric Research Infrastructure, EPTRI, supporting the design and implementation of high-quality clinical research across Europe. Next slide, please. The state of the art. ultra-rare diseases represent one of the most challenging areas of clinical development. The issue is not only the very small number of patients, but the fact that these populations are extremely heterogeneous and widely dispersed. Traditional clinical development models were designed for larger populations and rely on sample sizes that are simply not achievable in ultra-rare diseases. As a result, generating robust decision-grade evidence remains very difficult. At the same time, it is important to recognize that innovation does exist. We now have access to novel trial designs, more advanced analytical methods, and an increasing use of external data sources such as registries, natural history studies, and real-world data. However, the key challenge today is not the lack of innovation, but the fact that these approaches remain fragmented, inconsistently applied, and rarely implemented at system level. This fragmentation is one of the main barriers to progress in ultra-rare disease research. If we look more closely at the ecosystem, the situation translates into a number of persistent gaps. We can go to the next slide with the biggest gaps highlighted. From a methodological perspective, many standard trial designs and statistical approaches are not fit for purpose when disease prevalence is below 1 in 50,000. Innovative approaches such as single-arm and one trials, adaptive and platform designs, the use of external or synthetic control arms, and Bayesian or model-based methods are available, but they are still not used consistently across development programs. Recent work has also shown how synthetic data can effectively substitute traditional control arms, helping to overcome both ethical constraints and limitations imposed by extremely small patient populations. This includes emerging model-based approaches such as virtual or digital twins, where patient-specific simulations can act as counterfactual comparators. Beyond methodology, there are also significant operational gaps. Patient recruitment is often fragmented. Expert centers are not always well coordinated, and many clinical sites are not fully prepared to conduct ultra-rare disease trials. So access to high-quality natural history and real-world data remains limited, even though these data are essential to contextualize treatment effects. Finally, there are clear regulatory and HTA-related gaps. Developers still face uncertainty around how non-traditional evidence will be assessed, and shared development pathways specifically tailored to ultra-rare diseases are often missing. So these gaps increase development risk and ultimately delay patient access. And the key question then becomes, what needs to be delivered to address these gaps in a meaningful and sustainable way? We can go to the third, next and last slide, the priority outputs. In our vision, first, there is a clear need for usable methodological playbooks. These should be disease agnostic but adaptable and provide practical guidance on innovative trial designs, the use of external and synthetic control data, Bayesian approaches, and strategies to maximize the information that can be extracted from very small patient populations. The key point is that these tools must be practical and transferable and not only theoretical. Second, shared frameworks suitable for both regulatory and HTA assessment are essential. Common approach to evaluating single-arm and non-randomized trials, real-world and natural history data, synthetic control arms, and patient-focused endpoints can support earlier and more constructive alignment between developers, regulators, and HTA bodies, enabling faster and fairer decision-making. Third, and very importantly, innovation must be implementable in practice. In this context, research infrastructures such as EPTRI play a crucial role. by providing transnational pediatric research capacity, access to harmonized data sources, and networks of trial-ready centers. Such infrastructures can act as implementation platforms supporting the real-world application of innovative designs and model-based evidence. Overall, by aligning methodological innovation, regulatory and HTA frameworks, and enabling infrastructures, the ultra-rare disease ecosystem can move from isolated one-off solutions to shared and sustainable system-level standards, ultimately accelerating development and improving equity in patient access. In short, progress in ultra-rare diseases is not just about developing new methods, but about making those methods usable, accepted, and scalable across the European ecosystem so that innovation can truly translate into impact for patients. And I would like also to thank my two co-panelists, Solange and Christine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that was a very insightful presentation, and has certainly given us plenty of food for thought for our Q&A. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Thank you very much. So I'd like to hand on now to Christina, who is our panelist. So Christina, feel free to introduce yourself, and please feel free to take the floor.
Good afternoon. Sorry for my background. I didn't want to find the EU logo, but I have you see, the stars of the European Union, which are represented to the collaborative projects such as yours. So it will be difficult for me to follow after the comprehensive presentation of Solange and Donato. Perhaps I will say some telegraphic messages. Let me introduce myself. I'm working as a policy officer at the Health Research Collaborative Programs, particularly on the area of rare diseases and artificial intelligence for health, and also novel approaches like modeling and simulation. And we are working together in the unit of the health innovations and ecosystems, together with my other colleague, which we know very well, working on rare disease, Helen Lebon, and my head of unit, Carmen Laplaza, and at the Directorate of General for Research and Innovation. And I am a biochemist in my previous life, and molecular biologist, and some bioinformatics. But all these years, we see all the landscape of the innovation in Europe. So thank you very much, Kathy and Didier, for inviting me. I will try to very telegraphically, probably you have heard in several occasions, in next slide, the EU investment on rare disease research has been targeting the different stages of research and innovation, from basic research, preclinical research, translational research, public health research, and I will focus more on the collaborative model, multidisciplinary, multinational, different expertise like RealiseD also, and for the last 25 years, we have been investing more than 5 billion euro in multi-partner but single partner projects. The majority of this funding, from a general estimation, goes 75% and more goes to the collaborative project, and several of these calls for research proposals have been bottom up. So this means that the collaborative model is a very attractive, and you know it very well. I'm saying something obvious, but from the information that we have, this has been matching very well the challenges of rare diseases and ultra rare diseases, of course, even more. And in Horizon Europe, we are still doing this is the indicative 630 million euro in the first 3 calls and years of the Horizon Europe invested on rare disease single and multi-partner projects. a lot of these projects has been very successful. We have several projects that they have developed directly from the clinical development trials that we have been supported, co-funded at the EU level, orphan medicines to the market directly linked to this model. So besides also understanding disease mechanism, better diagnosis, comparative effectiveness assessment, proof of concept, advanced therapeutic medicinal products has been a very important area where we support for many years. And of course, more than 70% of the products coming to the market, they refer and they to rare diseases. And if I go to the next slide, here it just Solange have referred very shortly. I just want to say that at the EU framework programs, we have diverse funding models targeting different stages of the innovation cycle. And the classical model that we have been developing for many years, and several of you are familiar at the EU framework programs of research, it is the bottom-up challenge-based, clinical challenge-based, collaborative research and innovation project, which is supported under the health cluster of Horizon Europe, their current framework program for research and innovation. And as Solange mentioned, there are 9 multi-partner and multinational projects where we have created a cluster, bringing them together in a very flexible and loose way to learn about each other and perhaps create synergies and collaboration between these projects. So what I wanted to say, this was the first call where we funded novel in Horizon Europe rare disease therapies, where, and as a public funder, we published for the first time this call focusing, asking the community, research community, to work on groups of rare diseases. Because I remember very well in one past conference 3 years ago when a patient advocacy representative was discussing in a panel, if we go with this rhythm of reductionistic approach of one disease, one drug, for each rare diseases, perhaps we need, I don't know how many 100 years to reach more to address the more than 90% of the rare disease where they don't have an approved therapy. So that was really, it stuck to our mind. So we said, perhaps we try to boost these groups of diseases working together and developing either preclinical or clinical proof of concept or combination, because we have projects that they are starting from the preclinical for some of diseases and they continue with the clinical on the more advanced rare diseases. So rare disease with commonalities, of course, either at the clinical phenotypic data, clinical symptomatology, either molecular and combination pathways. Of course, in ultra rare diseases and in the model that you are using, you are not having a lot of information related to the pathophysiology mechanism. But I think by working on groups of rare diseases with common clinical symptoms, it can facilitate, by combining the existing knowledge, also the road to the ultra rare diseases pathway. And another important support that we have been investing in the Horizon Europe, it's a lot about regulatory science and real world data. So, and you know, for the Innovative Health Initiative and Innovative, where RealiseD, it's under this program is funded. There are a lot of real world data, and in your case also you're working on that perspective. And we have the Invent and ERAMED. It was one of the first calls that we launched in Horizon on regulatory science needs for pediatric and rare diseases. And I think this is important because they are developing a lot of novel methodologies, in silico methods, different modeling and simulation, etc. AI also, artificial intelligence. And another, these are the classical collaborative projects that we are supporting. And then we have the public-private strategic partnerships with the European Commission and the member states. And all of you know RealiseD. I mean, many of you are already involved. So this is one huge, large partnership. The latest partnership between the member states and the Commission and the research community at large, and the public funders and national, regional, coming together to mobilize additional funding for collaborative projects, because this is the this is the model that that we are try to support. Because I wanted to mention that at the EU framework program or research for health research, only 10% is supported by the EU. The 90% of the public funding for health research, it stays in the member states, in the national, in the research funding organization. So the EU added value, it's a very strong component of the projects that we are supporting. And I want to say RealiseD is not only delivering joint transnational calls and mobilizing additional budgets and new calls for proposals for more funding or rare disease therapies or diagnosis, but they have the so-called in-house activities, a very fundamental new concept that is supported in RealiseD is the clinical research network to support and accelerate both diagnosis, but also new clinical trials and clinical trial preparedness for rare disease in Europe. So this is a very important component, and a lot of infrastructural elements and a lot of services and to the community to be able to integrate more innovative approaches, like data-driven approaches, like Didier mentioned. So what is very important in this kind of public partnerships, as we call it, even though in the rare diseases there is the community and also the private funders have come together also in this partnership. So many private partnerships, which is exceptional and impressive, have launched and joined this effort of more than 180 partners. With as associate partners. So it's, even though it's a public-public partnership according to our terminology, it is a holistic partnership, bringing also private actors. And as you know, for the RealiseD also, it's a similar case. And I want to say in RealiseD, the characteristic is that all the partners, they have agreed to a specific strategic research agenda. So with priority actions, how to address the unmet medical needs and challenges in the rare disease ecosystem, and also how to build a more effective, a more productive, a more efficient research and innovation ecosystem that delivers innovation faster and more and accelerate more the research results to the benefits for the patients, for new technologies, for new processes. And then, of course, we are coming to a very important model that we have been supporting at the European Framework Programs for Research and Innovation in Health Research, collaborative also model that started with Innovative Health Initiative back in 2008, and now it continues with the Innovative Health Initiatives, under which RealiseD is supported. And excuse me, Didier and Kathy, probably I have realized that there are some factual errors in the number, in the partners, exactly counting the partners in RealiseD, but I will not go through more because it was explained very well. But so RealiseD, it's impressive that addresses even a higher challenge than rare diseases, ultra rare diseases. I mean, rare diseases, it's a huge challenge developing medicines, but ultra rare diseases, it's another level of complexity. And if I go to the next slide, I will just, and I want to refer to IRDIRC, the International Rare Disease Consortium, which the Research Directorate of Innovation, together with the National Institute of Health, we have launched back in 2011 because to coordinate, of course, the global funding efforts and promote more mature environment that will accelerate by working together. More drugs, better diagnosis, faster diagnosis. And here, since RealiseD, you are working in playbooks, which seems a specific terminology that is used in the private sector, because I remember when we were co-developing these topics are co-developed on IHI with a strategic board advice of the innovative health initiatives, where the different health sectors and health companies, health sectors, industries are sitting, but also with the collaboration in a co-creation with the European Commission and other services and departments of the European Commission. And here there is an orphan drug development guidebook, which was launched and completed in 2022. This guidebook analyzes very properly and in a very comprehensive way, in my view, about what are the steps for the successful development. And I think and also there is a drug repurposing guidebook that was recently developed. And I think these are very useful tools. There was a lot of work done by the experts, the scientific committees in IRDIRC to produce, and I found it very useful examples where you can get some inspiration in order to, of course, to deliver on your specific objectives, which is the innovative designs for clinical trials for rare and ultra-rare diseases. And if I go to the next slide. Yes, next slide. What we have learned in a very telegraphic way is that in the successful projects at the European level, both public or public-private or any collaboration between different multi-stakeholders, collaboration with purpose by all and commitment with all the partners, impact-driven, but based on the best science, this has been really been very important. And I think for ultra-rare diseases, it's even more critical that one assess the best state-of-the-art science directly or indirectly, depending on the rarity of the disease, and also rigorous management and patient-centric and address unmet medical needs centered. They have delivered several successful examples in EU-funded projects. And what I wanted to say, from the clinical development and analysis that we are doing, we have seen a lot of innovation in innovative clinical trial designs. So I have not seen any projects, perhaps from what I have seen, for the projects developing collaborative projects, developing new therapies, that they don't use adaptive or complex clinical trial designs, meaning complex, that at the same time that they are developing the clinical trial, they are discovering also predictive biomarkers. So it's a holistic clinical development where we have noticed several times in the successful projects, data-driven tools like modeling and simulation and digital, lately the digital devices and mobile apps, in order to integrate better patient-reported experience, are coming very much into the picture. Predictive biomarkers that help designing the clinical trial, and also novel clinical endpoints, which are more composite than single monodimensional clinical endpoints. Early advice and interaction with the regulators is critical. And also I wanted to say knowledge management, bringing all the knowledge that we have about the relevant disease, and using the lessons learned for previous experience in order to integrate it in a more effective clinical trial design. Also clinical trial networks. I have seen in very successful projects that they used existing clinical trial networks or best expert clinical centers, like several of them are represented by the European reference networks in your projects. And this has been clinical networks that have connections with private partners, like the model of RealiseD or previous existing successful projects funded under IMI and IHI. And I want to say, of course, you know, it's not only there is a need of a holistic approach and systemic approach for the most challenging unmet medical needs for ultra-rare diseases. And for that, and also for more innovation in the European Union, a word that you have been listening very frequently, and competitiveness in the different EU policy documents and press releases from different commissioners. We have been setting up the new legislative approach, orphan medicines and pediatric revisions, a health technology assessment, EU pharma strategy, the Biotech Act, which is very important also because a lot of biotech projects are relevant as medicines for rare diseases. The ACT-EU initiative, accelerating clinical trials in the European Union, the Life Sciences Initiative that is coming, the next framework program, where the proposal has been published the 16th of July 2025. And I would like to invite you, whenever you find an opportunity and there are public consultations for future activities that will influence the ecosystem of the research, health research in Europe, to contribute with your opinions and your very much insightful and expertise. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't go very long. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christina. It's very, very helpful and interesting to hear about the funding models in Europe and the different activities going on, and of course the learnings from the international work that you shared there. So if we go to the next slide, I think we can. Oh, you had one more slide there. Yeah, thank you. So we're now just going to go into the final section of this webinar, and we can open up for questions and answers from the panel and presenters. So if you do have a question, you can post it into the chat function, into the Q&A function, not the chat, the Q&A. If you want to ask live, please raise your hand and we can make sure you come off mute and you can ask your question. So with that, Dieter, there was a question that came in from Gregory in the chat whilst you were presenting. So I think all of the panel members and yourself can read it while I go through the question. But perhaps I could come to you first, Dieter, and then panel members, please feel free to chip in with the feedback. So the question reads, when statistical inference reaches its epistemic limits in rare and ultra-rare disease research, are we prepared to recognize other ways of knowing? So, for example, clinical judgment, patient experience, local practice, or social context. Are we prepared to recognize those as legitimate forms of evidence? And what would it take to design trials around that type of recognition? So, Dieter, the question was kind of seeded from your presentation, so maybe you could start.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this question. Very challenging. I mean, as we are focusing on the operational, let's say, conduct of the clinical trials with the referral system, and with certified sites, and then built on the statistical methodology. This seems to be a question which goes out of this area of evidence generation, what we are considering. But let me respond to the question from my perspective. I think that we, as I outlined, aim to do a paradigm change. That means that the way of statistical inference, which offers more than Bayesian statistics and frequentist statistics, that we would like to, let's say, promote this alternative inference statistics for finite or limited populations, and see what kind of evidence we can learn from that. And then we need to learn from the regulators and the HTA people whether they accept this source of evidence we can come up with. And probably I'm more thinking in, let's say, because if you have a limited population, then probably next year or the year after, you have another patient. So that means adaptations of the evidence should be go over and over years and years. But we have at a certain point, we have some evidence, and we can make a decision for the patients we have at hand right now. So taking this into account, then I think maybe I cannot see directly where this reasoning can break down, but yeah, I'm doing the project to learn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dieter. Solange, do you have any reflections on that question? Solange, do you have any reflections on whether that would be legitimate form of evidence and what it would take? Do you have any reflections, Solange? You're on mute.
Yeah, well, sorry, I was on mute. In fact, I support what Dieter said. And of course, remember, the slide, I provided. Knowing it's important, to consider what is already existing, what could be the tools, methods we could be using, knowing all what is happening here and there, which is, of course, not only the opportunity to work together, but also to connect the dots and to consider the global picture. So this is why, from the right beginning, when starting, to develop a product, there's the need, to identify what will be the strategy, knowing the strategy, will have to be modified as soon as, data is generated. And of course, it's important to also consider what are the expectations from, the regulators, those involved in pricing and reimbursement, HT bodies. And of course, it has been shown the value to have, a patient representative involved when a study is being designed. And of course, as usual, they are used to be involved from the right beginning until the end of the study, at the time the results, the study is completed, and the results, have to be, of course, identified and, of course, disseminated. And as Dieter mentioned, what will be delivered, by RealiseD will be not only of help for rare, ultra-rare diseases, but also for small population. And this is what was included, in the initial project. It was said small population, that means, for example, children with cancer. And of course, as you know, a lot is happening more and more these days. And not solely in Europe, but also beyond Europe at the global level. And I mentioned, what can be done, what can be expected, what can be used, knowing what is happening at the global level. And it's important, of course, well, by the way, Christina, you mentioned some task force of ERDIRC. There's also another one we are both involved in, which is all about regulatory convergence. And of course, this is an important element. And this is why, multi-stakeholder collaboration is important. And this will be also not only the opportunity for the developers, but also for the regulators and other, such as HTA body representative. So this is why we've been successful to invite EMA and EQUIC to join, the consortium.
Thank you very much, Solange, for those reflections. We do have one more question in the chat, which I'm going to ask Donato and Christina to respond to, if that's okay. So as a parent of a child living with an ultra-rare disease, I'm trying to understand whether or when Europe, EU or the country members could realistically develop a pathway for highly individualized therapies, such as patient-specific antisense oligonucleotides. So in the US, the N. Lorem Foundation has shown that this kind of approach can be made operational for multiple patients. From your perspective, is a comparable model feasible in Europe? If so, what would be the key enable conditions to make it workable and scalable? Maybe Donato, I can come to you first.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. We are still far from US, I should say. I'm speaking also as a member of the multi-stakeholder platform advisory board member. And building on what I just discussed also with the presentation, the problem is to optimize the clinical trial paradigm in ultra-rare diseases, starting from the gaps that I've highlighted. So we need the whole system to progress on it. Otherwise, we will not reach so great results as we expect. So early and continuous multi-stakeholder co-creation is essential. Altogether, regulators, HTA bodies, clinicians, patients, and industry need to be involved up front to jointly shape trial designs and evidence strategies, helping to reduce uncertainty around non-traditional approaches, because we need to promote the innovative approaches. And so an integrated evidence framework is a critical condition. In ultra-rare diseases, no single study is sufficient. So integrating clinical trial data with natural history studies, real-world evidence, and model-based approaches is key to supporting robust decision-making. And this kind of innovation must be implementable. Close links with trial-ready networks and research infrastructures are needed to ensure that innovative designs can actually be applied in real development programs rather than remaining theoretical. There must be a strong focus on practical and transferable outputs, such as methodological playbooks and shared evidence frameworks, so that lessons learned can be reused across diseases and sponsors. And strong governance and alignment with existing European initiatives are essential to avoid duplication, ensure coherence, and maximize overall impact. So together, all these conditions allow us to move from fragmented innovation to a more robust, scalable, and acceptable clinical trial paradigm for ultra-rare diseases, such as the example you asked.
Thank you so much, Donato. So, Dieter, there's a question in the chat, which I think maybe you can respond to in writing. So I'm just going to ask Christina to have maybe a final word on that question, just in a quick summary. If I've got something to add, please go ahead, and then we...
Yes, we are talking about the model of N equal 1. So individualized therapy, one single patient, the control of its own. When you are developing. So an antisense methodologies has been flourishing now. But what I can say, in their data, there is some specific work package developing the concept of individualized therapies with antisense oligonucleotides, and with collaboration with private sector. So there is a nucleus already happening there. But what I want to say, this individualized therapies, it is the most innovative approach, but I have not seen necessarily that is the most cost-effective approach or the most successful approach. I'm not a regulator, I'm a scientist, so I guess in the European Medicines Initiative, they have a lot of in the orphan medicine space for rare diseases. The developers, they have specific incentives and a collaboration and advice from the European medicines agencies, where they are providing providing advice on the best clinical trial designs. Of course, the individualized therapies is the ultimate more challenging clinical trial designs, because we need more novel methodologies, like data-driven, like what Didier said, modeling and simulation, advanced statistics, to learn to use the previous knowledge. And I think we are not good in Europe very much in getting the lessons learned and combining the existing knowledge to go. And sometimes we are reinventing the wheel. So it's still a challenge for me to understand that. But I think the regulatory authorities, EMA, and also the new pharma legislation talks more about more innovation coming, allowing more flexible, dynamic system to allow more the innovation that comes and the novelties from scientific research to feed up with the scientific expertise in the different groups of EMA advising the developers. So this is one idea, to have more a dynamic way. But I think we are far away from this, and we need a lot more rigorous scientific evidence, in my view, to document that if this could be the future. But I also want to mention here that drug repurposing is an important paradigm that is developing from existing drugs for other conditions, even for common diseases, and that is coming very, very also for ultra-rare diseases from the community as a more economic and fast developing potential model. But we are far away from this, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comments. So we are at time for the webinar today. This is such a rich and fascinating subject for everyone on this call and the wider community. So we could definitely talk all day, if not all week, or for many years on this. So this is only the start. And so we have reached time for today, but a reminder that there are 3 other webinars in this series. So please do come back. I'd like to thank all of our presenters, Dieter, and our panelists, Solange and Donato and Christina today, and Daniel for sharing the slides, and all the team behind who've helped put this webinar series together, and all the minds that have come together to put the agenda together. So Dieter, would you like to make any final comments before we go to close?
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening to our first webinar, which is, let's say, a little bit a high-level seminar. We will go more into specific questions in the next seminars from different perspectives. Thank you very much for your contribution so far. And well, I'm looking forward to meeting you at any place in the world and discuss with you on topics like that in the future. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot, Solange, and Christina and Donato, for being here and being a panelist. It's a pleasure for me to have you on board. And thanks, Kathy, for moderating this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Good continuation in your innovation on clinical trials, and hope to learn soon some exciting results from RealiseD.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.